Kerrin McCadden, thank you so much for joining me here on Walking Inside Poems.
Thanks for having me, John.
How are you?
I'm great. It's a sunny day in Vermont and it's almost warm out, so that's a good and rare
Yeah.
event.
Okay. Well, we're recording this in late April. It'll probably go out in May, but what's your typical temperature in late April there?
Well, I think it snowed last week. I think it was last week. It did. It snowed last week, and we're in the maybe the upper 50s, sometimes in the 40s. It's pretty cold.
That's nice though.
Mm,
It's hot here in Texas already.
well, I would take that.
It's already hot. Well, grass is always greener.
Yep.
Well, again, thank you so much. As anyone who's paying attention to my podcasts know, you were on a different podcast I do, so that you are a return guest. I really appreciate you doing that. And you chose a fascinating poem by the poet Brigit Pegeen Kelly, who my first introduction to her was Black Swan, and it just floored me. I've been very interested in her since. So I'm looking forward to get into that. I normally show the book. This one's not in a book. Did it only appear in the New Yorker or the
New York Times.
New York Times?
There's also a couple of like art books that were made, at least one art book that was made of it, but not a traditional, it didn't come out in a collection.
That's right. Yeah. I bet that art book is probably, if I remember reading about that, there were only 50 copies printed.
Yeah.
It's thousands of dollars, I'm sure. It's nothing that I would do. Let me tell you, we will get into Pegeen Kelly and this poem here in a minute, but let me ask you to start off by telling our listeners who you are. A little
Hi.
Yeah.
I'm Kerrin McCadden. I am a poet. I live in South Burlington, Vermont, and I'm also a high school teacher. I teach in a technical high school in Essex Junction, Vermont, and I like poems. I don't know what else to say.
Is this
I
still
wrote that book.
This is still your most recent book? Yes.
Yes.
What are you working on now?
I'm working on a collection, and I think the title is Let's Never Leave. And it's a decidedly more maybe humorous collection than anything I've done before. More, I don't know, maybe a little more weird. So I'm trying to close in on that. We'll see how that goes. So
I had the sense, and I don't know if it's from talking to you or what, they probably was, that you are changing a little bit. Your poetry is changing. Is that how you would characterize it? You're bringing a little humor in?
Yeah, I don't know. I just want to have some fun with poems, and I think my last book had some. It was a heavy book, and I think for me, from book to book, I don't want to imitate myself. I don't want to do the same thing I've done twice. I don't want to fall into any traps I've set for myself. So each book I put out, I think, okay, now what? And I try to find another direction.
Nice.
I like to grow. It's boring not to,
Sure. Who are some of the poets other than Pegeen Kelly? Who are some of the poets who have been important to you?
Recently I've been I hate this question because I want to look around at my books and see what I've been reading lately. But I've been really interested in James Tate and Bill Knott, which is a departure for me. I think I would just say that for now. Those are the two that I've been reading in the past weeks.
Okay. Have you been over to Ireland recently?
Nope.
Okay.
I hope to go this summer if I can.
Nice. I've wanted to go for a long time, and I have sort of renewed interest in going. I watched just happened on, I think it's on PBS, a little documentary just called The Irish Pub, I think, and it just goes through Ireland, looking at these old pubs and talking to the people who work there. And I got through watching that, and I said, "Let me book a flight right now. I'm ready."
They're amazing. My favorite one in Donegal Town. Now I forget the name of it. I can't believe I forget the name of it. It's got, I think, 4 stools at the bar, and that's it. And it just has like no room. There's a little tiny couch off in the back, and that's all you get.
Wow.
Yeah.
I may have shared with you last time my nephews up in Kansas City, and they're half Irish, and they are now playing. Well, actually, only one of them is playing in an Irish band called the Elders,
I remember. Yeah.
They tour Ireland every year. So one of these years, maybe even this year, I'm going to go with them. Well, anyway, thanks for sharing that. Let's get into this poem.
Yeah.
Even though, like I said, I normally show the book that the poem is in, I don't have it, but let me show a couple of her books because she's just amazing. And people who don't know her, if you're a poetry fan, you need to know her. She's just incredible. Let's see. I have three of them. To the Place of Trumpets, which is an early one of hers, I believe. And then Song. The poem Song itself is incredible. And then The Orchard, and that's where the Black Swan comes from. And if depending on time, I might try to read that poem just for grins. But let's start off by reading this poem. Before I do, though, let me ask you to tell our readers, why did you pick this one in particular?
It's a little bit of a story. So I was at Breadloaf in 2005, and Brigit was a faculty member. And so she was doing her reading, and it was in the evening. And she read this poem, and she was very sort of secretive about her reading. She wouldn't let them be recorded or anything. You won't find recordings of these online. And she read this poem, Iskandariya, and no one knew it, right? Often you know the work that a faculty member is reading. And as there were a couple places in the poem where everybody thought the poem was ending, like there's some natural ending spots in the poem, like, oh, that's the poem. But then it would re-begin. It just kept going, and it kept deepening and deepening. And by the end of her reading of this quite long poem, I was crying. Like I don't usually cry at poetry readings, and it's not because the poem was sad. I was just like amazed. And then I looked around, and everybody near me was also kind of weeping. And it was just this incredible moment of, what a poem can do, and what a poem's best experience in the world is. And ever since then, I've been really, it feels almost sacred as a piece to me. And I don't know quite how she did that to everybody, but that's why I picked it, and it's why I often pick it to talk about.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll read it here in a second, but before I do you know she is a bit of a mystery? As you said, she was a very private person, didn't allow herself didn't do interviews. As far as I know, I don't think there's any interviews. Maybe, I don't know, who knows, there might be one, but not much. And didn't allow herself to be videoed at readings. Was a very private person. Do you know much about her?
I don't like to claim things like this, but I did meet her and spend a bunch of time with her at Breadloaf. And
Wow.
what I do know about her that I love is that she would, the faculty had a special house that they could go, be in, that people at the conference weren't supposed to go to. And she would often instead come to the barn at night to sit around and have a glass of wine with the people who were at the conference. And she was so warm and so open. And she had kind of I don't want to say a raunchy sense of humor, but she really had an appreciation for like off-color jokes, and just really enjoyed sitting around and laughing with people. So she was very, very real, and humble. And generous. I mean, everything you'll read online about her is that she was generous with people. So
That's so good to hear, because often the celebrities, if we want to call it that, who are very private, don't do anything, any interviews or whatnot. The knee-jerk reaction is, oh, there must not be a very nice person. They don't care about people. But it's so
right.
good to hear that wasn't her at all.
No, she was just a lovely, lovely person.
Was it? But did you feel a little bit like you were in the presence of a rock star, sort of?
She was really able to not have that be the case. Like you would just be talking to a regular person when you talk to her. She put on zero airs.
Well, her poems are incredible.
Yeah.
And they're kind of mysterious to me. I don't know how she does it, because a lot of them, as I read them, I feel like almost like I'm reading ancient myth.
Yeah.
And yet it's not. And I'm sure she probably draws on myth. She probably draws on the Christian tradition and other things like that. But I mean, she creates these little worlds that feel like. Am I right about that? Do you agree with
Yeah, completely. And I think in some ways that that adds to the mystery of like her being a very private person. I think she's speaking often through myth and through these worlds. Like she's in these poems, right? But where is the
Yeah.
question? Where is she?
Well, let's read this one. It's the poem, by the way. I don't think we've said the title. It's Iskandariya, and I will read it, and then we'll talk a little more about it. There's so much we could talk about. Iskandariya, Brigit Pegeen Kelly. It was not a scorpion I asked for. I asked for a fish, but maybe God misheard my request. Maybe God thought I said not some sort of fish, but a scorpion fish, a request he would surely have granted, being a goodly God. But then he forgot the fish attached to the scorpion, because God too forgets everything. God too forgets. Everything forgets. So instead of an edible fish, any small fish, sweet or sour, or even the grotesque buffoonery of the striped scorpion fish, crowned with spines and followed by many tails, a veritable sideshow of a fish. Instead of these, I was given an insect, a peculiar prehistoric creature, part lobster, part spider, part bell ringer, part son of a fallen star, something like a disfigured armored dog. Not a thing you can eat, or even take on a meaningful walk, so ugly is it. So stiffly does it step, as if on ice, freezing again and again in midair, like a listening ear, and then scuttling backwards or leaping madly forward, its deadly tail doing a St. Vitus jig. God gave me a scorpion, a venomous creature, to be sure, a bug with the bite of Cleopatra's asp, but not, as I soon found out, despite the dark gossip, a lover of violence or a hater of men. In truth, it is shy, the scorpion, a creature with 8 eyes and almost no sight, who shuns the daylight and is driven mad by fire, who favors the lonely spot and feeds on nothing much and only throws out its poisoned barb when backed against a wall. A thing like me, but not a thing I asked for, a thing, by accident or design, I am now attached to. And so I draw the curtains, and so I lay out strange dishes, and so I step softly, and so I do not speak, and only twice in many years have I been stung, both times because, unthinking, I let in the terrible light. And sometimes now, when I watch the scorpion sleep, I see how fine he is, how rare, this creature called lung book, or mortal book, because of his strange organs of breath. His lungs are holes in his body, which open and close, and inside the holes are stiffened membranes, arranged like the pages of a book. Imagine that. And when the holes open, the pages rise up and unfold, and the blood that circles through them touches the air, and by this bath of air the blood is made pure. He is a house of books, my shy scorpion, carrying in his belly all the perishable manuscripts, a little mirror of the library at Alexandria, which burned. Wow.
Oh, you know, writing poems, often people will ask, why do you write poems? Or even that question, like, what is a poem? To me, this poem gives not this permission, but it gives such a generous definition of what a poem can do. Like, who anticipated, as you were reading this poem for the first time, who anticipates the materials of this poem as they show up? There's no way of knowing where it's going. And it just is so strange. This like, I just think I was thinking about this morning, how I think I love this poem so much because it breaks down any kind of definition of what a poem can do or should do, or how you should approach what you can put in a poem, how you should write a poem, what the sentences should look like. And even so, it feels so wild, but it's highly structured. And that to me is miraculous. I just think it's a miracle.
Tell me, what do you mean by it's highly structured?
Um, what do I mean? Excuse me. there are little pieces of narrative strung throughout it, very, very, very tiny narrative gestures. And then there's this whole in the beginning, she says all these things. Let me see if I can organize this thought a little better. She's trying to, in the beginning, she's weighing what this thing is she's been given. You know, it's not this, it's not that. Instead of this, I got that, this, that, the other thing. And it's all this kind of like dithering, what is it? I don't know, kind of back and forth stuff. And that happens for a big chunk of the poem, like the first, maybe almost a third of the poem, until we get to this place where she says, in truth, it is shy, the scorpion. Right. And so like when we get to this point, after that, it's all this like, instead of the but and all those instead of kind of phrases, it's all and I, and I. And it's just like, it becomes this liturgical, prayer-like expression of love and acceptance for this strange thing. In the beginning, she's like, oh, I don't know.
Right.
And that's a structuring move, right? After in truth, we move to this other way of gathering material.
Yeah,
So
at first she says, "This isn't what I asked for. What's this? This isn't what I asked for." And then I've got to pull it back up here. And then she talks about the grotesque buffoonery. Oh, well, that's actually of the striped scorpion fish, but she's
it's the thing she's likening to the scorpion.
Right. And she calls it a prehistoric creature, part lobster, etc. Part bell ringer. That's an interesting, we can come back to that. Let's do part son of fallen star. Are we talking Satan here?
I think so. Maybe.
Yeah, I think so too. A thing you can't eat, so ugly, so stiffly. So she's really, she does not have a very good attitude at this point towards the scorpion she's been given. But God gave that to her, and so slowly but surely she learns about the scorpion, and she's amazed by it. I mean, by the time we get to the end, this incredible, the way that its breathing mechanism works with these kind of membranes like pages of book, she marvels at that, and we should also, and maybe I'm jumping ahead, but we can go back. The ending. So Iskandariya is the title. Is that not, I think that's another name for Alexandria.
Yeah.
And we know that the infamous library at Alexandria was burned. So I wonder what are we to make of the fact that she concludes this odd, strange poem by making reference to that library burning? Any ideas?
Boy, that's a great question. Let me think what I want to say about that. I mean, to me, this poem is if there's an about that this poem arrives at, this idea of mortality, right? That whatever, and whatever beautiful thing we have inside us, whatever gorgeous, lung book we or a scorpion might have inside us, it's all perishable. Right. And so she uses the word perishable manuscripts, like it's all perishable. And there's this, and I don't know how she makes it so beautiful to imagine perishing, or the perishable materials we hold inside ourselves, and the mysterious things, like the mystery of our body. And I think that she's getting at this idea of, where for me anyway, it's, there's so many ancient materials in this poem. There's so many, the goods are dark and ancient, and that's what we all are. We're all made out of this. And she seems like, yeah. Just pause for a second about this. Like, I think when I first started reading this poem, I just want to digress a little. I was like, come on, it's not fair that the scorpion actually has lungs like a book. That's like an unfairly perfect image for a poem. It's like one of those, it's like the pure gold of, I think I'll research the scorpion. And then you're like, wait, what? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And then he loads it at the end of the poem, like, whoa.
Right. Just sticks it in there at the end. Yeah.
Like, boom. And it's not the ta-da that I think a lesser poet would make it. It's not the big reveal, like, and then watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat. It's just so carefully arrived at. And so the materials are so slowly meted out, then you're like, wait, what?
But ironically, it sort of is ta-da, but it's done and it's a very subtle kind of ta-da that
Right. And she's got a lot of stuff preceding it. She's just got a lot of these other moments that kind of seem like they would be competing for the greatness of the image. And then at the end, it's just like, well, I think you're done. That's it.
and you said, if it's about something, I do think that's definitely a mistake with her poetry in particular to say what it's about, although sort of, there are themes here. And
Right.
and one, I think, is acceptance of what we're given. I think also this notion that the paying attention, which is the job of a poet, one of the jobs, paying close attention brings appreciation for things. Even something that is maybe at first glance ugly, when you learn about it, when you really pay attention to it, when you bring your awareness to it in a really interested way, you start appreciating it and accepting it. I think that's in there. But now there's a couple moments here. At one point, she compares herself. I'm a little bit at a disadvantage here because I didn't print this poem out. Maybe you know
You're
what?
good.
Maybe I should. And my printer's going to make a noise here, but I'm going to print this out right now because I don't like sitting here going back and forth. Where's the moment? If you help me find the
Yeah.
moment. It's just like me. It's like
Yeah.
me.
It's like line 27. Um, that is, I think, the germ of the poem, right? That's the moment where you're just like, wait, what? And when I'm interrupting you. What were you going to say about that? Sorry.
No, keep talking. I'm going to grab this off my printer.
Okay. So, I think I mentioned to you, I don't remember if I mentioned it on camera or off, but that I wrote a paper on this poem when I was in graduate school for my thesis. And I was writing about focusing moments, these times. It's funny to be talking to your chair.
I'm
Hi,
sorry.
John's chair. No, it's funny. It's good.
I'm still here.
Um, that I was writing my paper on something I was calling focusing moments in a poem. And I was working with Tony Hoagland, and one of his critiques of my work was that I wasn't really saying what I meant, that I was obfuscating too much in my poetry. He's like, you just come out. He's like, why don't you just say it? And he really wanted me to just say the thing. And he assigned me this topic. I had to write a 75-page paper on this topic so that I would learn it. It was great. It was a great exercise and very mean also. But I've never forgotten it. And this poem, A Thing Like Me, is her moment. It's where everything else gets pushed out of the way. Everything else is pushed to the side. That's the moment where the poem just clears out, and like that is the true statement.
It only throws out its poison barbed when backed against a wall. A thing like me,
Yeah.
but not the thing I asked for, a thing by accident. So she's saying perhaps that if we're going to extend this analogy to her, that maybe she's not very approachable. Maybe she does like um, the dark places, but she's not going to throw out her poison barbs unless you back her against the wall, and then she will.
And I think too, there's this beautiful reconciliation soon after that where she says, and sometimes now when I watch the scorpion sleep, I see how fine he is, how rare.
For
Like,
watching a scorpion sleep. Now, how bizarre is that?
right, but also seeing, if she's likened herself to the scorpion, if the scorpion is a thing like her, and she's able to say, we don't want to say she, maybe the speaker, we should technically say the speaker,
Sure.
but I see how fine he is, how rare. Like if we're going to continue the comparison, she sees how fine she is, how rare.
Yeah, good.
Like if it's a moment of like self-love or acceptance of self, or for the reader of the poem, a moment where we can feel this kind of acceptance of the thing that's difficult, the thing that's dark, the thing that is usually not appreciated in society. The thing we were usually afraid of, whether it's inside us, whether it is us, or whether it's just the thing itself.
I like that. And it may not be what we asked for, but this is what God gave.
Oh, When is it? Whenever is it what we ask for?
She got stung twice, and both times it was because she let in the terrible light.
Yeah,
Anything you want to say about that?
no idea.
Okay.
I have no idea. Like, I think there's this, we're in this funny territory where she's a really mysterious person. We were talking about, like how it's hard to find things about her online, and she didn't do interviews, didn't let herself be recorded. But and so I think, I always want to find things about her in her work because I do, but I don't know if that's the task, right? Like, I feel like it's not a puzzle to understand who she was as a person. It's a poem that is about a speaker, right? So I don't know. There's that question of, is the poem letting us know who the poet is, or is the poem letting us think about ourselves? I don't know the answer to that. I'm really tempted to be like, what does this teach us about this amazing writer? Because it's such a personal poem. I think we're led into that because the poem feels really personal in a body of work that's often quite not personal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like a real open eye in the poem.
There's some really great moments here. For example, when she's talking in the third stanza, she's talking about describing, part lobster, part spider. Oh, part bell ringer. What do you make of that? Anything come to mind there?
I think I looked it up a long time ago, but I forgot to look it up for talking to you today.
Well, a scorpion's tail kind of circles around, and there's like a kind of a barb hanging on the end. So the rope and the bell, you pulling the bell
Maybe
ringer
it looks like it.
could be. Part son of a fallen star. I think of Satan instantly.
Yeah.
Disfigured armored dog. Not a thing you can eat. Not a thing you can take on a meaningful walk. I mean, can you imagine taking your scorpion for a walk?
That's also really funny. That's disarmingly funny.
Yes. And so stiffly does it step as if on ice. You probably don't have scorpions in Vermont.
No, thank God.
I killed one yesterday. We have them all the time here.
Why didn't you bring one to our talk? We could have had a little show and tell.
See, I do have one. Here's one encased.
Come on.
That exact creature right there, we have them in our house frequently.
No.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. I got stung not too long ago, and it hurts. Oh boy, it hurts. But you get used to it. They're like, it's like getting stung by a bee or something. But what was I going to say about it? When you see them walk, it is kind of like prehistoric. The steps are kind of like they almost freeze and drop that, So she's saying that so stiffly does it step as if on ice, freezing again and again in midair, like an ear listening, or that tilted head. This is a really cool description of it. You wouldn't think that, but it is actually.
She's good.
And then it's deadly tail doing a Saint Vitus jig, so it's quivering or shaking.
Yeah, it's funny to me, that section you were just reading. So stiffly does it step as if on ice, freezing again in midair like a listening ear. So first it's on ice, and it's on ice like a listening ear at this, like it moves quickly from description to just like metaphor to metaphor, or simile to simile, but how it moves from like ice and then it's a listening ear really quickly. Like that's kind of absurd. There's this kind of absurdity in the rush of descriptive language that I really like.
And in fact, in the stanza before, she called it the grotesque buffoonery of that comparison. So yeah, there is kind of humor in these scorpions. They're very interesting for sure.
And she undercuts that kind of absurdity and the humor right after that, where she says, God gave me a scorpion, a venomous creature, to be sure, a bug with the bite of Cleopatra's asp, but not, as I soon found out, despite the dark gossip, a lover of violence or a hater of men.
Right.
That's beautiful.
They don't attack us. They don't go after us.
Right.
They want to be left alone. Yeah.
They would like you, yeah.
But that is beautiful. You're right.
Yeah.
It's just one of those poems that, at first read, you go, what? But the more you look at it, the more it's like, wow, so fascinating.
Sorry, I'm just interrupting you.
Please.
one of the parts I really love is how the poem shifts into present tense. Like in the beginning, it's mostly past tense, um, but he forgot the fish. I was given an insect. And then it moves into the present tense around like the last third. Um, where is it? After a thing like me, but not the thing I asked for, that's past tense. A thing by accident or design I am now attached to. And so I draw the curtains and so I lay out.
Oh,
Comes a continuous presence, like this is now the way I live. And I think that that's a beautiful structuring gesture too. And then there's all this use of the word I. It just opens into this kind of incantation. And so, and I.
well, and it's not only there's four repeated and
Yeah.
so I draw the curtains, and so I lay out, and so I step, and so I do not speak.
Right. And that's a liturgical gesture. That's a prayerful gesture. Um, so
She is so fascinating. I kind of want to read The Black Swan, but I don't know. Maybe we've got enough to chew on here. But are you a fan of The Black Swan?
you go ahead and read it. Yeah.
And I said The Black Swan. It's just Black Swan. And like a lot of her poems, they're I guess prose poems, right? Is that true? I mean, is that what you
Um,
published?
you call it free verse for sure, but I think some of them are prose. There's some argument. I'm looking askance when you said that because when I was writing my paper on, well, yeah, there's prose for sure. Some of them aren't. There's some argument about whether Iskandariya should be a prose poem or whether it should have the line breaks.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
And we don't know because
no idea.
when you look at the one that is published in that art book, it's just little snippets of it on you can see it online, and it's little snippets of the poem on different pages, so you don't get a good sense of what the overall structure is when you look at it there. So another mystery. Okay, let me read this poem. It's just so amazing. Black Swan. I told the boy I found him under a bush. What was the harm? I told him he was sleeping and that a black swan slept beside him. The swan's feathers hot, the scent of the hot feathers and of the bush's hot white flowers, as rank and sweet as the stewed milk of a goat. The bush was in a strange garden, a place so old it seemed to exist outside of time. In one spot, great stone steps leading nowhere. In another, statues of horsemen posting giant stone horses along a high wall. And here were triangular beds of flowers flush with red flowers, and there circular beds flush with white. And in every bush and bed flew small birds and the cries of small birds. I told the boy I looked for him a long time, and when I found him, I watched him sleeping, his arm around the swan's moist neck. The
Mhm.
swan's head tucked fast behind the boy's back, the feathered breast and the bare breast breathing as one, and then very swiftly and without making a sound, so that I would not wake the sleeping bird, I picked the boy up and slipped him into my belly, the way one might slip something stolen into a purse, and brought him here. And so it was. And so it was. A child with skin so white it was not like the skin of a boy at all, but like the skin of a newborn rabbit, or like the skin of a lily, pulseless and thin, and a giant bird with burning feathers. And beyond them both, a pond of incredible blackness, overarched with ancient trees and patterned with shifting shades, the small wind in the branches making a sound like the knocking of 1,000 wooden bells, things of such beauty. But still I might have forgotten, had not the boy, who stands now to my waist, his hair a cap of shining feathers, come to me today weeping, because some older boys had taunted him and torn his new coat. Had he not, when I bent my head to his head, said softly but with great anger, I wish I had never been born, I wish I were back under the bush, which made the old garden rise up again, shadowed and more strange, small birds running fast and the grapple of chill coming on. There was the pond, half circled with trees, and there the flowerless bush, but there was no swan, there was no black swan, and beneath the sound of the wind I could hear, dark and low, the giant stone hooves of the horses striking and striking the hardening ground. I don't know. How does one do that? I don't know.
Well, and how does one take the materials of the world, the lived daily world, and turn them into that?
Yeah. Yeah. Her son was been bullied, and she had told him the story of, she'd made up a mythical story of how he was. It sort of harkens to the stork, bringing the child. But she said, instead, I stole you from a swan under a bush. Now, okay, that's a pretty bizarre thing to tell your child. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but that was the creation myth, so to speak, that she had given him. And now, years later, he's being bullied, and he's saying, I wish I'd never been born. I wish I was back there under that bush. Yeah.
And and the way it's written, it itself feels like an actual ancient myth. It doesn't feel
Exactly.
like the treatment of any kind of day-to-day experience. It feels like
Yep.
we're in the garden, we're in, this Eden or this anti-Eden. And I feel like a lot of times in her poems, I feel like I'm in a magical world. I think
That's one of the reasons I said, did you feel like you were in the presence of a rock star when you hung out with her? Because she's so mysterious, and her poems are she's so unique. I've never read a poet like this, and
Hmm.
uh, it's uh, she's very special. She died an untimely death, didn't she? She died young, I believe. Do you know how
Yeah,
old she
about
was?
it was in 2015. I can't imagine she was older than 60.
Yeah, yeah. She
I'm not sure.
died young, but what a colossal poet. I'm so glad you chose her. I don't know if I suggest her or did you suggest her? I don't know which, but
Well,
what
you asked me which poem I wanted, and this was my choice.
great, because like I said, that my first introduction to her was that poem I just read, and ever since then I've held her in this really special place. She's just an amazing poet for sure.
Yeah,
Um, okay. Well, I'm taking a little too much of your time. I really
you're
appreciate you
good.
doing this, Kerrin. Again, repeat customer. Thank you for doing another one of my
Always a
podcasts.
pleasure.
And will you do us a favor by reading Iskandariya for
I
us
will.
to take us out? Thank you.
Can do. Iskandariya. It was not a scorpion I asked for. I asked for a fish. But maybe God misheard my request. Maybe God thought I said not some sort of fish, but a scorpion fish, a request he would surely have granted, being a goodly God. But then he forgot the fish attached to the scorpion, because God too forgets. Everything forgets. So instead of an edible fish, any small fish, sweet or sour, or even the grotesque buffoonery of the striped scorpion fish, crowned with spines and followed by many tails, a veritable sideshow of a fish. Instead of these, I was given an insect, a peculiar prehistoric creature, part lobster, part spider, part bell ringer, part son of a fallen star. Something like a disfigured armored dog. Not a thing you can eat or even take on a meaningful walk, so ugly is it. So stiffly does it step, as if on ice, freezing again and again in midair like a listening ear, and then scuttling backwards or leaping madly forward, its deadly tail doing a St. Vitus jig. God gave me a scorpion, a venomous creature, to be sure, a bug with the bite of Cleopatra's asp, but not, as I soon found out, despite the dark gossip, a lover of violence or a hater of men. In truth, it is shy, the scorpion, a creature with 8 eyes and almost no sight, who shuns the daylight and is driven mad by fire, who favors the lonely spot and feeds on nothing much, and only throws out its poison barb when backed against a wall. A thing like me, but not the thing I asked for, a thing by accident or design I am now attached to. And so I draw the curtains, and so I lay out strange dishes, and so I step softly, and so I do not speak, and only twice in many years have I been stung, both times because, unthinking, I let in the terrible light. And sometimes now, when I watch the scorpion sleep, I see how fine he is, how rare, this creature called lung book, or mortal book, because of his strange organs of breath. His lungs are holes in his body, which open and close. And inside the holes are stiffened membranes, arranged like the pages of a book. Imagine that. And when the holes open, the pages rise up and unfold, and the blood that circles through them touches the air. And by this bath of air, the blood is made pure. He is a house of books, my shy scorpion, carrying in his belly all the perishable manuscripts, a little mirror of the library at Alexandria, which burned.
Wow, beautiful. Kerrin McCadden, thank you so much for
Thanks,
doing
John.
this. I really appreciate you're very generous with your time. Thank you. And I wish you all the best.
You too. Take care.
So
Thanks.
long.